Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Marsh, Events and Marketing Manager at the Greater Concord Chamber of Commerce. Thanks so much for joining our webinar today with HR ROI Consulting. For those of you who are just signing on, we're really excited that you're here to watch this webinar. This session will be recorded and we will send the recording to everyone afterwards. You can rewatch sections. You can actually even, we'll give you a copy of the slides too, so you can go back and look at these resources later. But since you are here live now, you have the opportunity to submit questions throughout the presentation. To do that, you'll just move your mouse a little bit or tap on your screen and you'll see a button called Q&A. You want to click on that and then just type in your questions. Those will be seen by the presenters and we can kind of answer them throughout where it's appropriate. So again, click on Q&A, you'll type in your questions there, and please feel free to submit them anytime. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Amy and Tanya, and go ahead, take the floor.
Thank you very much, Emily. I'm just going to go ahead and screen share. And we'll keep it really brief just about us, but we've both, Tanya and I both have been in HR for many years. We were very young when we started, and we've been doing consulting for quite a while now. And we offer a lot of different services, but we're just really passionate about HR. And it's something that I've been doing almost right out of college. And now I'm actually transitioning into the legal field. I'm in my just wrapping up my second year of law school at Maine School of Law. So next year we'll be adding services around employment law and privacy law, but we'll continue offering, of course, all the HR consulting. But we also offer a lot of training as well. And so I'm based in Portsmouth, and then I'm going to introduce you to Tanya, who I think a lot of you know already. But Tanya, if you want to say a few words.
Sure. Hi, I am probably a familiar face to you. I have been a chamber member for a great number of years, and I currently serve as the chair-elect for our Greater Concord Chamber of Commerce, the best chamber ever. And like Amy said, I started in HR probably when I was about 2 or 3, so it's been over 26 years. And I really do enjoy both, working with nonprofit, for-profit, consulting, and in-house, but it's really a very satisfying role that I get to play and that HR generally gets to play as business partners.
That's true, and we're excited to actually share some of our thoughts with you today regarding just what companies really should be thinking about going forward. And so you'll note, and I've shared this presentation already with Emily, and you'll be getting it, but you'll note as we go through it, there's hyperlinks in a lot of them so that you're able to learn more, because we're going to cover these 6 topics. So it's going to go quick, and I definitely want you to feel comfortable stopping us with questions. You can speak, take yourself off mute and speak, or you can put them in the Q&A. Tanya's going to be keeping an eye on the Q&A, but we're more than happy to answer any questions throughout. So we'll stop and answer questions as we go. That way, when you're talking about one subject, we're not like steps later on, talking about continuing ed. I want to make sure that it's timely for you with any questions that you have. So without further ado, we're going to jump into probably the most important thing to be thinking about, like all the time, which is legal compliance. So I encourage you to learn from the mistakes of others. And this is hyperlinked to the Department of Labor site. So the U.S. Department of Labor has a lot of resources in here. And one of the things they also do is they also list all the companies that have gotten into trouble. And each one of these companies, there's a hyperlink here that'll tell you specifically what really happened. I just pulled New Hampshire employers only. They have all 50 states listed, of course. You'll see a whole spectrum of compliance issues, penalties, other steps the company has to take to make reparations for what they've done. Sometimes what companies will have to do is not just pay the back wages like this company up here, but they're also going to have to pay penalties, as well as continually to report to the Department of Labor, do audits, pay for audits by either attorneys or CPAs, have training programs, and report any concerns or complaints to the Department of Labor for the next couple years usually. So it's not just all the money that you pay plus the legal fees that you pay to defend yourself. and which you pay whether you lose or not, and then it's the penalties and it's everything else after that. So it's a very costly exposure. So I really encourage you to explore these. We don't have time to delve into all of them, but you see here, a lot of it's back wages. It's not paying wages that people worked. It's not tracking hours, especially a lot of it's around overtime as well. This one here, this company, and if you click in there, you're going to see the names. So I'm not going to do that, but the company was actually asking employees to not speak to the Department of Labor. So they got some additional penalties for that. Child labor violations here. I know there was one in Concord not long ago as well, just because people aren't always aware of what the federal laws and state laws are around child labor related to age and hours and what they could be doing. Any child that's under 18 shouldn't be operating machinery. And then if they're 15 or younger, there's even more restrictions on what they can do. So make sure you do your due diligence on child labor laws and you don't get into that kind of violation. Discrimination as well related to pay, not paying fairly. There's again child labor, there's safety. There's just a whole host of violations that organizations find themselves getting into. And you may find some of these are what they consider good employers. They think of themselves as a good employer, and they don't think it's quite as important to worry about all the details of the Department of Labor's regulations, but that's not the case. And all it takes is one disgruntled employee or a random audit or some other factor, and they're contacting you and they're doing an audit, and they can go back 3 years, and they will. And if they see one discrepancy, it'll be or maybe a couple, they'll be diving it into even deeper. So I encourage you to afterwards take some time, click on these links and see what the companies did wrong so you can be sure that you can avoid them and learn about what you can do to be compliant. So this is the federal level right here. The Federal Department of Labor oversees wage and hour, and also they oversee like FMLA. They have OSHA under them as well. And then we have the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission. They're also a federal agency, and they oversee discrimination claims, harassment claims. So, and then you have OSHA, which you often see is just really a standalone agency, but they're under the Department of Labor. And they, of course, focus on safety violations and health and safety of workers. So there's different federal agencies that are involved that are, have oversight over employers. And then at the state level, like in New Hampshire, we have, of course, have the New Hampshire Department of Labor, and they oversee wage and hour violations. They don't get into discrimination, harassment claims. The Human Rights Commission of New Hampshire handles that. So there's usually a separate agency that handles discrimination, harassment types of claims. And I'm actually going to be interning this summer with the New Hampshire Department of Labor. So I'm pretty excited about that because I'll be able to really delve into all the types of violations that employers are seeing and be able to go on inspections and learn even more what Department of Labor is really looking for. So let's just take a quick view here. Again, this is a state level. So you have federal and state considerations, and often they're the same. Whatever's more protective for the employee is what you need to follow. So I encourage you to go through this as well and just see what the top 10 violations are. You'll see the regulation listed right here, so you can actually investigate to see what it is. But here, number one, again, is this failure to pay all wages due. Fringe benefits, that's vacation time, whether or not you have a policy about paying it out or not paying it out. In New Hampshire, vacation time is not considered wages. So the employer has an opportunity to speak to whether or not they're going to pay it out. But if you don't address whether you're paying out or you're not consistent with how you pay it out, you're going to have to pay it out. In states like Massachusetts, once vacation is accrued, it's considered wages. So you cannot, opt to just not pay it out. So things around those topics is where companies get into trouble. Breaks, not paying for breaks. Any break that's less than 20 minutes in New Hampshire or 20 minutes or less in federal law has to be paid. So again, we won't have time to go through all this kind of thing. We periodically do some complimentary webinars on this topic. So kind of keep an eye out for that. You can sign up on our website, or you can email Tanya or I, and you can stay in the loop with any of that kind of thing. Or you can also just do your own investigation, look at these regulations, go to the Department of Labor, New Hampshire Department of Labor website, and understand what they're talking about with some of these requirements. Number 5, written notice. I see this a lot too, where employees are not given written notice confirming their pay. details around pay periods, pay date, fringe benefits, that kind of thing. So again, these are things that are easy to get compliant with and stay compliant once you know what you need to do. Any questions so far?
Amy,
I
a
see some.
question came in that asking, and it's a relative to this. How many years should we keep an employee and applicant files?
That really varies quite a bit from 1 year for applicants, like applications and resumes, up to 30 years plus for OSHA related things, but the safe number is generally about 5 years. There's different requirements for payroll related documents compared to ERISA, so there's not a hard and fast rule on that. It really depends on what the record is, but 5 years is the general rule for any employee thing related to getting pay and other actions. But because of the audit capability, and it really does vary very much so. So I don't have a good quick answer for you with that, but we'll see. Maybe Tanya and I, we can follow up with and we do have something in our resources, but I can't just quickly pull it up for you guys to go through, unfortunately. So it's kind of a broad answer. I apologize, but it does vary and it is important. So we will send it to Emily, maybe, if that's okay, Emily. Maybe you can include it with the presentation. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, yeah, because we do have a guide on that. So we will just add that. That's a great question too. So thank you for mentioning that. So we'll add that. Anything else that comes to mind, please just jump in. So yeah, that's wage and hour. And then related to benefits is really a new regulation I wanted to point out to people. We did a webinar about this last week too. It's the new COBRA premium subsidy. And this has a hyperlink right to the premium subsidy information too. And this falls under the American Rescue Act and a requirement for employers to provide 100% premium assistance for COBRA, which is related to your health insurance once you leave an employer, or if your hours are reduced and you lose insurance, or it also pertains to spouses who become divorced or separated and lose coverage, and dependents that age out of the plan. So anyone that's coming off of an employer sponsored group health insurance has eligibility for COBRA. So, and there's also down here mini COBRA laws. So COBRA is a federal law that's 20 employees or more, employers that have 20 employees or more. But if you have less than 20 employees, there's often a state mini COBRA law like New Hampshire, Maine and Mass. Most states have them, Vermont. And in that case, you're still obligated to provide the insurance continuation. The insurance company has more of a role in getting notifications and election notices out, but the employer would still need to provide that insurance through the mini COBRA, which is pretty much identical to the federal COBRA. So even if you're a smaller employer, you're not going to be exempt from that. And the COBRA premium subsidy does include the subsidy for mini COBRA. So in other words, if an employee was laid off or let go, say last month, then they're going to be eligible for 100% free COBRA premium each month until September 30th. And then on October 1st, they're on their own, whether they want to continue the COBRA premium or not. And what I'd advocate for them at that point is to consider the marketplace, healthcare.com, healthinsurance.gov. I have the link in here, I think, but it's easy to Google, and you can consider the marketplace. The paperwork that the government provides relating to COBRA does talk about the marketplace too as an option for former employees and individuals, because it's pretty cost friendly. But right now, no one's going to turn down the premium subsidy because it's actually free through September 30th. So we'll dig into this just a tad, then we're going to move off of legal compliance. But so employers have to pay the premium. Although I did see in the regulations that it's possible some insurance companies will actually just submit the tax reimbursement themselves, but more likely they're going to require the employer to pay the premium to them. And the employer is the one that will have to recover the tax credits on the 941s, the quarterly 941s. And your payroll provider is working on that information, setting that up for you. I know we use QuickBooks, and last I checked last week, they said they were in the midst of it. They were just waiting on more guidance from the IRS. So, keep an eye out with that, talk to your payroll provider, and they're going to help you be able to claim that subsidy. So who's eligible for it? It's folks that are laid off or involuntarily terminated. So people that quit they're not eligible for the COBRA subsidy. So they're not going to get the 100% paid COBRA benefit till September 30th. Unless they claim there was a constructive discharge, they quit because you forced them to because of conditions. And, that could be a one-off exception of that. And that would be really probably determined by the Employment Security Division, if they grant like unemployment benefits. And if they do, may have to explore that one, may have to get some legal advice in that one, or maybe you just make a decision to grant it to them, depending on the results from Employment Security Commission decision. That's a rare circumstance there. Typically, it's going to be more clear. It's either someone laid off or involuntarily terminated, and they have to be still within the 18-month COBRA window. So this is where it gets a little tricky, because what the regulations say, and the law says, and then the regulations that Department of Labor has provided that interpret the law, they say that you have to go back and look at 18 months. So people that are eligible, those that are currently electing COBRA, they're currently paying for it now. Those that have declined COBRA as separation because they probably couldn't afford it, because it's exactly what the employer's paying, the full premium, which can be pretty pricey. It could be $600 individuals, could be $1,600, $1,800 for family or more. It also includes those that elected but discontinued it. So maybe they initially said, yes, I want COBRA, and they found they couldn't afford it, and they discontinued it. And this also applies to those that are newly eligible. So basically, you have to make sure, and we'll look at some forms in just a moment, you have to make sure that anyone that is qualifying here, laid off or involuntary terminated, and they don't define involuntary termination. So it could be for cause or not for cause. So it's just a very broad term. But you want to go back and see who's still in their 18-month eligibility window, which is, they say, going back to October 1st, 2019, that far back, to see if they had any eligibility after April 1st. And if they had any eligibility, and maybe it's just April only, because they're terminated back in November 2019, then you're going to have to give them that 100%, that coverage for that 1 month April. So this is definitely an administrative headache for employers, and the more employees that you have that are eligible, the more administrative headache it's going to be. If you have a COBRA administrator, that's awesome, because they'll be able to help you through this process. But if you do COBRA internally, then you're going to need to manage this yourself. So I included a link in here. This is a cool little site I use all the time. It's a date calculator. So you can go in here and say, well, the person left, March, let's see, 05, 2020. And we know they get 18 months of coverage for COBRA. So that means they're eligible for COBRA until September 2021, which means they're almost through, actually they are through the COBRA subsidy period, because that subsidy period goes until the end of September. So that means that you're gonna send paperwork out to the employee or the former employee or individual. And if they choose to elect it, they may have moved on and not even be eligible. They have another employer, they don't need it. But if they haven't moved on and don't have insurance, then you're gonna have to reinstate them, and they get credit back to April. Then they'll get April, May, June, July, August, and through September. And then September 5th, in our example, the person's COBRA eligibility stops, so the benefit stops. But say they had, say they were later on in the year, they came on or left in May, and their COBRA that 18 months wouldn't run out until this November. So as of September 30th, they're going to be no longer eligible. Remember, it's only to the 30th. So after the 30th, they're on their own for the COBRA premium. So I know this sounds horrible, and this link is here. So if this pertains to you, you're going to need to do a little investigation and make sure you understand it. So I just gave you a quick cheat sheet here. What's the requirement for you? So by May 31st, you have to go and do that due diligence, go back and see who's still within their 18-month period. And you'll have to send a subsidy notice to them to let them know. They have 60 days to elect coverage for the April 1st date, and they get retroactive coverage till the April 1st. So say you don't send the notice out till May 25th. They have 60 days to decide. Once you get the election notice and then they decided to take it, you're going to retroactively apply them back to April 1st with your insurance company. And everyone's aware of this law. So while they're all, getting familiar with it, So there'll be provisions to help you on your insurance company side and your payroll side to get your credit. That's important too. You're going to want to include a subsidy notice with any newly qualified people. So anyone that's laid off or involuntarily terminated, now make sure that notice is in there. You also need to make sure you send a notice of expiration when that premium assistance is going to expire. And Department of Labor says you want to send that within either 15 to 45 days. So 15 days is when it's getting close to expiring, or you could, give them a lot more notice and give up to 45 days notice of when it's expiring. And then lastly, any premiums that are someone's paid inadvertently because of the change of this new law rolling out, you're going to have to refund that within 60 days. So here's the forms, and you're going to want to spend a little time on this one as well. There's a Word option because you're going to need to modify them to apply to your company with the details in there. So here's the general notice. This is the one where people are going to, new ones coming on, they're going to be eligible. Here's the extended election period for those that already turned down COBRA, and it's already, the COBRA period's already started for them. You have to go back and find out who they are and send the notices out. There's an alternative notice for those that are under mini COBRA. So again, if you're less than 20 employees, you're on mini COBRA, you're a mini COBRA eligible employer. And so that notice is a little different because it doesn't have all the COBRA language in it, because it's not COBRA, it's mini COBRA. And there's also the expiration of notice one there that, again, you need to let them know within 15 to 45 days. And then last but not least, there's a summary one that's for the, it's more for the employee. We'll look at that one real quickly. It gives them a broad summary of it, gives them their rights as well. And it also has a section for them to request to apply for the subsidy. So you want to get this back from these employees. This is also important because, as you see here, it says to qualify, you want to make sure they're saying yes, that they're actually eligible. And so they're not eligible if they're on another health insurance plan or if they're on Medicare. So getting this back is important. This is their election notice, and then that puts you on notice that you need to reinstate them. And going back to April 1st, pay their premiums through September 30th. If they're 18 months stops before that, then obviously it stops when the 18 months stops, but at least through December 30th is eligibility for the subsidy. So a lot to unpack there. And I thought it was really important to make sure we talked about that. So are there any questions at all, Tanya, or does anyone want to come off mute and just burst in with a question? That's perfectly fine.
I'm not sure if they're able to unmute themselves, but the question and answer, we don't have any right now.
Okay, yeah, so I'm sure they're probably in a state of shock is what we found with our other webinar, where people were like, oh no, this sounds awful. Now, if you're only talking about one employee, if you go back 18 months and from April 1st, and it was only one person, that's not bad. If you're talking about 10 people or more, it's going to be some administrative work. So if you have any questions on this, please reach out to me. I spent a lot of time researching it, reading everything, so I understand how it works. But I want to make sure everyone knows this is on their radar. Again, the date to really remember is that you need to get this done by May 31st. So you still have some time to digest it, get your ducks in a row. So Tanya, anything that you want to add so far? I don't want to do a monologue. Is there anything you want to add?
One of the things I would encourage, if you work with benefit brokers and third-party administrators, really ask them about it. They're the ones that are dealing with this day in and day out. And if you get an answer that you don't understand, push them for more explanation, because this is a tricky topic that you're not dealing with every day. Like Amy said, it may be a very infrequent practice, but use the relationship you have with your broker to ask those questions, and make sure that you understand your obligation, because those can be some pretty costly experiences without you having done that with malintent.
Yeah, there's a fine of it's $100 per day per individual, or $250 per family. So there is a fine in there as well. Fine for any employee or individual who takes advantage of the subsidy that wasn't actually qualified. They have to pay back, I think it's 120% of what they, or 119% of what they receive. That's a great point though. Definitely lean on brokers. They can help you, but they don't have your data. You'll have to be pulling that. But if you have a third-party administrator for COBRA, that will be great. Your payroll company will help you, get your tax credit back. So there's definitely some resources there, and you have some time. So, and this will pass. It's an unusual time for sure. So that's kind of legal compliance side. A lot of things you can check into and learn a little bit more about, make sure you're compliant there. Another thing I want to talk about though is the candidate experiences. Um, you've all probably been ghosted at some point. Either, you had an interview set up and they didn't show up, or worse, you've had an employee, you've hired and a hopeful employee, and on their start date, they don't show up, they ghost you there. So really important that we're providing an enriched candidate experience. Even though there's a lot of debate about the status of available employees out there, our unemployment rate's about 3.1 right now, which is still pretty low. And what I found from surveys I've read and people I've talked to and all the recruiting I've been doing for clients is that a lot of people aren't moving right now because they don't want to risk it. They're satisfied enough with what they have. They're not really feeling adventurous to go look for other positions. So there's a combination of a lot of employers hiring. So there's a combination of factors out there where you really need to make sure you're providing a great candidate experience. So you're responsive, you're providing as much information as possible. Your job posting really should have pay information in there. And benefits, share as much as you can. Make sure you claim your employer profile. If you use Indeed or whatever service you're using, you claim your profile and you put things in there like pictures, videos, that you show them a little bit about what it's about to work for your company. And I encourage you to take advantage of social media, to tap into your social media now. Maybe I was talking to a client the other day and about the president. He's going to do a video and just tell him tell people his story in a couple-minute clip, of course, not his life story, but just how he started the business. It's a environmentally friendly company. It's pretty cool product and what they provide. So he's going to tell his story. That may work for you, having a clip like that, because you really want to make sure you're reaching out to people and you're resonating with what's important to them. Gone are the days where employees, as you know, probably are going to stay at companies for a long time, unless you're just really that great of an employer and you can provide the variety and the movement and the learning that someone typically wants. But aside from that, I mean, people really want to work for companies that they feel aligned with and that they feel good about working with. So make sure you're sharing what's good about your company, and then you're very responsive. When people apply, be quick to respond. And I know this seems silly, but make sure you're being polite. I've been on the other end of the spectrum too, and I've got abrupt responses sometimes, and that's a turn off because those are red flags for the candidate too. So just make sure you're communicating as much as you can, even if it's just to say, look, we're still processing your references right now or your background check, and just want to check in and see if you have any questions. Just stay in touch like that. That can make a difference too. Tanya, anything that you'd like to add here?
No, again, I think what Amy just brought up with, stay in touch, have those touch points, and really you're still trying to woo them as much as they're looking for a job. It's you trying to woo them to your organization. So sharing those videos, those pictures, any type of experience that they can expect with your organization, those are really helpful because you are competing for talent.
Yeah, and I just want to also let everyone know that Tanya has not seen the presentation because we've been so busy. So Tanya, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you know like a whole breadth of knowledge about a whole bunch of things. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I feel comfortable knowing that you have input. So, but yeah, she hasn't had a chance to see this ahead of time. So this shows you how amazing she is. So candidate experience, and then this one here, I really like this saying. I didn't have a person that actually wrote it, so I'm going to just tell you it's not my saying, but there's no such thing as work-life balance. It is all life. How true is that? And I think it's so important to remember that, while employees are working for you, they're also living their life, which is the good and bad of life. As you all know, there's deaths in the family, there's illness, there's emergency vet appointments. Like my older dog, it turns out she has anxiety and arthritis combined. I thought she was like in a coma. It was horrible. So those are things that employers need to understand, be sympathetic, empathetic to. And that's why the whole flexibility thing is such a big movement for work now. Everyone knows with remote work, how a lot of people are really liking it. And they may not want to do it like 100%, but they like the idea of hybrid options. We know there's many occupations that, you simply can't. You have to be, front facing with customers. But in those cases, you look at what else can you do? If you have to be boots in the ground there, is there some flexible scheduling we can do? Is there more paid time off? More companies are gravitating towards no balance on PTO, unlimited PTO. Make sure your managers, you have a conversation about expectations too, so that and if this is true to your organization, if it's really not, then, obviously that's not going to work, but have conversations about as being as flexible as possible, and look more at the outcome of performance, the work they're doing, and not just, the way the employee is doing it. Are they getting their work done? Is the quality there, productivity there? You're seeing what you'd expect. It's not necessarily, how they got there, but it's the end result of their work. And if that's good quality and all, then, that's the bottom line there. So being as flexible as you can through the process for employees with different hours, location, and all is really important. And making sure that you remember that people have to be able to find a balance. I know some people say, let's not even use the word balance, but I think it still is a kind of balance. At times, work's going to be a little higher. Other times, life's, the general life responsibilities are going to be higher. So, you have to find something that works. And I think as a good employer, it's critical that employees know that, you recognize that, they're living their life, and that, they've chose to work for you, and you're going to do what you can to support them, through all of life's experiences, the good and bad that happen. So just be really mindful, I think, of that balance. And to that point, I think really listening, sometimes it's just asking questions. It could be in a survey, could be just, small groups. It could be informal conversations, but, ask questions, see what people are saying, see what's realistic. I tell people, don't promise something, but, let people know that you're interested in what's important to them, and that you may not be able to deliver any or all of it, but you want to know and understand what you can realistically do. So just don't, obviously overpromise, but encourage them to share, what they're seeing, and what they like, and what think would work for them. And you'll be surprised the ideas that you might get from folks that you hadn't even thought of, and you can work off that. And to that point, I think wellness programs are really critical. Whether it's a full wellness program, I chose Lawson Group. There's many more great ones, but I just have personal experience in Lawson Group. I remember meeting Scott Lawson back in it was probably 1999 or so. And he was on the road, more of a sales guy than he is now in his role. Just great enthusiasm for what he was doing, and so happy for him that it's grown to this incredible company. I know they're located in Concord, and they have great options for a wellness program, so that's why I chose them. But again, there's many others that could be a great option for you. I know we used Scott Lawson Group to do smoke and cessation at my old company, Lars Heating Systems, and they came on site, did smoke cessation groups. We also used hypnosis to help people, and we had a lot of people stop smoking, which was pretty cool. So just one of my personal experiences with them. But again, there's EAP programs that are really critical as well, and they're a little bit different, as some of you probably know, or all of you know. Wellness programs are more proactively coming in and trying to look at how you can help employees have more enjoyable, healthier, longer lives, and there's many elements of it. And you have the EAP program, which is typically more crisis oriented. And that's where, you have counseling benefits, and there's financial counseling services. There's some legal services involved there. That's more, as I think of crisis mode, where I think of wellness as more like being proactive and preventative. So, striking a balance, if your company can afford, both or one or the other. And then also, don't forget debt. We have Northeast Credit Union. My company and I personally use them, but there's many others I'm sure offer this. But Northeast Credit Union has this really cool managing debt feature, open for their members. And I'm sure, probably any bank or credit union has that kind of thing. And these are some of the things that they have in there. Again, not promoting Northeast Credit Union, it's just one I have personal experience with. But they have this road to financial wellness, how to get out of debt. There's all kinds of great resources because the statistics show 72% of Americans, see the stat up here, I added here, they report feeling financial stress. And that's an element of a wellness program often. Like with Scott Lawson, we often have lunch and learns. We have people come in and do something on financial wellness and how to manage debt. And it's not just lower income folks. The more money you make, the more you spend. So that's the American way. We have a tendency to spend more than we should. And then we find that we haven't put enough into our retirement. And it's a common theme. If it's any consolation, if you're in that boat, I think I always wish I put more money away already into my retirement. So think about financial wellness too, because that's a huge stress and that can really lead to health problems for people. And then just lastly, I'm going to ask Tanya to add what she has too. But if you can't afford a more formal program, or even if you do, you want to add another element is just letting people know about 211. Every state has 211. If you go to 211.org, it looks like this, and you can talk about like, what focus do you need help with? It's a phone call away. It's 24/7, 7 days a week. Here's a Maryland person here. So every state actually has it. You can call, you can, I think there's a texting option as well in here. And here's where you would find a local one. Every state has one of these. So it's a great resource. Again, more crisis oriented, but some of it's financial, and it's going to be for like a financial assistance too, about maybe grants or, there's homelessness, of course, coming into it, food banks, some of the challenges that people face. A lot of people are just one paycheck away. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before, one paycheck away from, being in financial crisis. So pretty scary, which is why, going back to this theme here about, you want to consider the financial elements for people too, and what you can do. I know some companies offer short-term loans that they may facilitate with an outside company or their own financial provider, or they just do internally to help people in crisis with short-term loans. That's an option potentially too, because the whole paycheck loan options, that industry really takes, it's very expensive. I don't want to say they take advantage, but it's probably accurate. They take advantage of people's, crisis, and they charge a lot. So it's an option for people, but it's very expensive. So maybe offering your own short-term loan internally in your organization could be a great option for people. And maybe it's not something you want to do, and that's totally understandable, but you might want to explore other ways you can help people think about financial management and stress. Tanya, I just covered a lot of territory. Let me know if you want me to back up to any slides, or if there's
Don't
anything you'd
back
like
up.
to add.
But I just want to jump in and perhaps some of your brokers can share that EAP programs may be already embedded as part of your Anthem plans or part of a workers' comp coverage plan. So a lot of benefits companies are starting to package that in there because they're seeing wellness as a path to ultimately reducing the expense of healthcare. So if there's any prevention like smoking cessation or weight loss or stress management, that can result in less costly experiences in the future. So a lot of preventative care, mindfulness in the workplace, wellness in the workplace, resources for your employees are in those EAP programs. So more often than not, you may find that company benefit plans do have that as a hidden option already available to your employees.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know that a lot of my group life insurance plans and disability plans previously when I was in-house did offer EAP programs, and they were great services for people, and they're standalone EAPs that you can purchase, and they're not that expensive. I know Exeter Health Resources has one. I have a client that works with them on that. I know there's is it KPM? It's easy to Google like EAP programs near me and find out some options. And or like you said, Tanya, great idea, sourcing to your broker. I know they can often do some quotes for you to see, get some quotes for EAP programs out there, but they're not that costly. I mean, you may be looking at, $2,000 to $3,000, $4,000 for a year for if you have 20, 25 employees, maybe more, maybe less, but the cost of that you could easily incur from lost time, turnover, healthcare expenses, disability, workers' comp expense, people being out, injuries, absolutely. And we know mental health is definitely, I think it's always been, it's always been there. We're just more aware and more comfortable talking about it. But I think also the circumstances of just life nowadays is just, is just really brought about more mental health challenges for people. Anxiety and depression are very common ailments. And so, yeah, I mean, just again, use resources. That's great advice, Tanya. Anything else you want to add on any of that topic?
Sorry, 211, I believe, is also the resource for coordinating COVID vaccines if people are not able to get into the VINI system or were not registered in the VAN system. So
Yes.
they help with the scheduling for vaccines if you have employees that are looking for that.
Yeah, I heard that as well too. So I think here, like contacting them, there's a lot of resources. So I like to put posters up about this 211. It's a free resource, and it can be complimentary to an EAP, or it could be, what you're able to offer, because EAP is not an option for you at this point. And again, the wellness program we talked about, that's a little bit more of a different angle, but it can all work in a very complementary manner, or it can work all standalone. But I think the idea is to let employees know that there's resources out there, and that you as an employer recognize that this is life, and you want to be supportive and empathetic to that. So yeah, and these, as you just saw, they all have hyperlinks in them as well, so you can explore more. So next topic is just, as you know, probably I think everyone's aware how critical this has really become these last couple of years, where we see all the things happening in the world, and just diversity, inclusion, equity, or equality. You'll see different abbreviations. You may see DIE, or you may see DEI, and we'll talk about that slight difference there in just a moment. But having a strategy, starting the conversations about it, if it hasn't already happened, really big focus on that. I have a resource in a minute I want to point out on this one as well. But just recognizing that you can't ignore it as an employer. And a lot of surveys have shown that candidates, especially younger generations, who I don't mean to to disparage older generations, because I'm part of Gen X, but the younger generations are more mindful, even more mindful of how important employers' values are, and their alignment with their own individual values. So you definitely want to make sure you're having a conversation here and thinking about what could you be doing differently. What could you implement to start to really make this come to a meaningful strategy for your organization? And I think I just want to point out, just to talk about real quick. So they talk about diversity being inviting people. There's just an example, inviting people to a dance. And then inclusion is inviting them to dance at the dance. And then the equality part is asking them to be part of the planning committee. So it's an image you see floating around on the internet, and it kind of just tries to show you the differences between diversity. So if you're hiring people that are diverse backgrounds, race, age, gender, educational, religion, different mental or physical characteristics, just having them on board there isn't enough. They need to be included in your organization and in management roles. And then the equality part of it is really just making sure they're part of the strategy in your organization too. So just hiring someone and having them sit at a desk doesn't mean you can check off the box that you have an effective a DIE strategy, diverse inclusion equity strategy. It takes more than that. You have to really get them immersed into your organization, and just see people as is just part of the team. And I saw this earlier today. I really liked this saying. I put it on my LinkedIn page too. Just different isn't bad. It's just different. I think we need to get over that in our mind that, we're raised that, difference not as good. Someone different is not as good as me. Different's bad. We have that negative feeling about just anything that's different, any people that are different, not just basing race or age or something, gender, but also just anything different isn't as good as me. And that's not the right way to think. And we have to kind of get over that. We do need to get over that way of thinking and really try to embrace that, difference is different and we're just all people. And to that point, I just want to talk about a couple quick terms, the difference between equality and equity. So equality we have here where everyone gets the same, everyone's entitled to the same benefit, and that works a lot of times, except for when people are starting at different points. And so that's kind of what equity gets into, is that, not everyone's starting from the same point. Someone may have started with a mental health condition, and they're going to be a great employee once they get the help they need to get and any reasonable accommodation to be able to be a productive part of your team. Or someone may have a not the same education that you're hoping that everyone has in there, but you give them a chance because you see the qualities they have. So equity is about giving people an opportunity to get there. Like this person here, even though they're just having fun at a baseball game, that's kind of the image's intent. They're still able to participate fully and be a really part of that team with just a little bit of support to get them up to the same step. We're not all starting off in the same circumstances. I used to be a foster parent, and I saw some of these situations where these kids are coming from really, really hard to get to a successful career and education when you're starting in poverty and neglect, drug abuse, child abuse. You're not starting in the same place that everyone else is. So of course you need more support to give it a chance, to have the equality piece of it. So that's kind of the difference between, equality and equity, is that, sometimes people do need an adjustment to have an opportunity. Doesn't mean that you're giving them favoritism. They just didn't start in the same spot you did or someone else did. So that's kind of my little soapbox there. Tanya, before I just want to show some stats, but Tanya, is there anything you want to add so far right now? I know you haven't seen these before, so I don't mean to throw you under the bus with it.
No, I love this presentation. So I'm learning as we go, because this is something that I'm constantly needing to read and learn about. So I'm very excited to see and hear all these different thoughts and opinions. I do want to share an attendee wrote, diversity, inclusion, equity is not a gift. It should be earned, and the person should be qualified and willing to do what is needed. And I can read that a couple of different ways. But the way that I'm choosing to read this is, everybody needs to approach how they interpret diversity, inclusion, and equity, and make sure that they're open to learning what equality, what equity, what diversity, what inclusion means to their peers and to the members of their community, and to others around them, to members in the workplace. So
and to the person's point, I mean, we're not talking about giving things to people. We're not talking about people not earning things and getting them just because we're just giving them. We're talking about making sure that everyone has like the same playing field to start with. If we were all born in the same set of circumstances with the same health, the same economic benefit, educational benefit, safety, crime status, I mean, so many factors. If we all started exactly that way, then we wouldn't even have this conversation. But everyone doesn't start that way. And people start with many obstacles and barriers, and they fight to get up to where they are. Sometimes they need a little bit more assistance to get up to where they are, and that's not their fault. That's really society's, the way that society is, unfortunately. So as an employer, it's absolutely, you're right. It's not about giving things to someone who is not qualified. It's just making sure you're open-minded about what the job really needs and entails, and you're making sure opportunities are provided to everyone so that they're able to shine and show you, why they're qualified why they're willing to do what's needed. So it's not, again, giving people things they don't deserve, because to your point, I understand completely. I mean, you need to have a qualified employee who can provide, the contribution that you need for your organization. But it's getting the right people into that role, that where we fall into the diversity aspect, where we're just making choices of who's really qualified, and we're not making it as open as it could be. So women face that for a long time, where like Ruth Ginsburg, she couldn't get a job as a lawyer because she was female. She graduated at the top of her class from Columbia Law, ended up being U.S. Supreme Court, as we all know, and couldn't get a job as a lawyer at a law school, top of her class. Law reviews, brilliant person, but she couldn't get a job because she was female. That's kind of what we're talking about here, is those obstacles that have nothing to do with the person's character or ability. It's just the obstacles that have been presented to them. And that's what we're talking about, is employers thinking about ways to attract different people that can really add value and contribution, and really enrich an organization, but not about having to sacrifice the expectations of the job or quality to get there.
It's removing barriers as well. So the barriers to entry, barriers to success.
Right. Exactly. Like again, with Ginsburg's example that I just was reading her book, and it just struck me like, how incredibly difficult, it can be for some people, for obstacles. And we see that now still with race. Just why I want to get to this slide here. This is very disturbing. Black people have faced discrimination for a long time. We know that, and it's awful. Another disturbing trend, though, is getting into Asian hate. You see Stop Asian Hate, hashtag Stop Asian Hate. We're attending a rally about that next month in Portsmouth. And you see here, 8 out of 10 Asian Americans say violence against them is increasing. This is an example of barriers where you're just going about your day, but yet you have to worry about someone attacking you, people acting like they're uncomfortable around you, having racial slurs or jokes, someone making a remark about you going back to your home country. These are obstacles. This is another example of what we mean by diversity and equity and inclusion, is recognizing that some people are not dealing with the same, same position that the rest of it. I mean, I'm thankful I don't have to go worry about going to the store and having any of these horrible things happen to me. And over here, Black Americans, you see, the percentage that are saying there's a lot of discrimination against each group in their society. White people say they don't see a lot of it. Well, of course, because, you're not in those shoes, and others kind of see it popping up. Asian, Hispanic, and then those that are Black, really are the ones that are experiencing it. These are examples of barriers that unfortunately exist today, and we just need to strive to again, look at diversity and inclusion, equity, and do our part in helping eliminate these kinds of barriers for people's success. And just also want to point out, so I know we're getting to the close here, but Pew Research Center, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Pew, but it's a great resource if you're looking for statistics. You just Google them, and they have stats and surveys on like a whole bunch of content, which may be valuable to you, your nonprofit or for-profit organization. And so just real quick, another stat, I love seeing stats, but the effect of hiring managers not being held accountable for interviewing like that. And I've been on that side of it too. So just encourage whoever's hiring to, again, think out of the box about who could be successful in this position. And it doesn't have to be this little narrow bit of criteria. It could be someone that has the determination and creativity to really succeed in that role, but maybe they're not coming from the traditional background that you might expect. And so, again, really important diversity coming forward, but it's still not really always being recognized. So one last thought on that, I'm going to switch gears to a couple more things, but we do have a nonprofit peer-to-peer group that we do. We run once a month. It's the third Tuesday. Yeah, third Tuesday. It's on our website. Third Tuesday of the month. Gail's email is in here. Gail is one of our team members. And we have Jermaine Moore from the Mars Hill group. He's going to be speaking about DEI. Jermaine's a fantastic speaker. I consider him a friend and a really smart guy. Here's the link to his website. So please check that out if you want to learn more about DEI, because DEI, I'm not an expert about it either. I'm still learning about that myself, but Jermaine, really does have a lot of knowledge about that field. So, you're more than happy to join a nonprofit group, either, occasionally or, every single month, whatever works out for someone's, schedule. And so just want to change gears real quick in the last couple minutes here. Continuous education, there's more options nowadays than ever. I mean, sure, our company does a lot of training and all, but you can give employees options like LinkedIn, a subscription to LinkedIn, or Go Skills. And it's like $29 a month, I think, for both. And for $29 a month, and there's employer scaled ones too, if you want to offer it to more, and employees can learn online. And continuous education is really important because people strive to stay fresh to their skills. They want to help their employer as much as possible. A lot of people really don't want to feel stagnant, and they need that interaction and development to keep learning. And it helps your organization to have people keeping fresher skills. I noticed this one here has just drilling down into some more software skills, just some more traditional things, and how much amazing things Excel can actually do, or Google Slides and Google Sheets and all the other software options. So that's an option. And then again, LinkedIn has tons of courses, tutorials too, that you may be able to provide to your employees, pretty reasonable cost, and they can keep enriching themselves and adding a benefit to your organization. And then the last thing, just embracing automation and freeing yourself. And I think I have, so this is the slide here. Again, don't have time to go into all of it, but this site here does a really good review of all kinds of HR software, things that you can develop. Like, for example, learning management systems are a big one where you can start tracking what people have learned in their jobs, requirements for education in their positions, for ongoing certifications. You can build in their performance. You can build in goal setting, conversations, performance tracking. Really important in the compliance arena that you have, good paper trails when there's compliance, when there's performance issues, just in case, it comes back later on and there's a discrimination claim, that paper trail is super important to show that you actually did have a real performance problem. It wasn't just a pretext for discrimination. So automation can help with that too, with providing, great tracking of performance and coaching and, counseling steps. So all sorts of things. Applicant tracking systems are awesome resources too, to keep a pipeline of future candidates, to keep track of who you've responded to. Some of them allow you to move a candidate over to another job category, another position where they could be better suited, or maybe you just filled this one and now you're like, oh, this one just came in and they're really great. So I'm going to move into this job and see if they're interested in this position. So it helps you really keep everything like on track and just frees up yourself and your organization's time. So if you're interested in that, you can hyperlink this one here as a hyperlink, and you can, this is a great company here. Phil's one of the founders, I know him, and they're able to show you reviews on like 30,000 software that they've gone through with advice on ways to start the automation process for your organization too. So that's it. I know there's a lot of content. There's hyperlinks here to our company blog if you want to stay updated with us, and our company LinkedIn page. Tanya, any last minute words of advice or wisdom?
No, you've covered so much in just an hour. So I'm impressed at how wizardly you're able to do that. It's magic.
Well, hopefully
Thank
it wasn't
you.
too much.
I learned a lot from here.
Oh, great. That's awesome. Any last minute questions anyone has? I see one more. Let me see if there's something in chat. Okay, yeah, okay, just about unmuting. Well, you know how to follow up with Tanya or I. Tanya's email address, as you may suspect, is just tanya@hrroi.com. This is mine. So we appreciate you attending with us today. I know Emily has a couple last minute words, so I'm going to turn it over to her, and thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And we will send out these slides and this recording of this webinar to those who registered. And I think we have one other guide we'll be sending out too as a follow-up to a Q&A. So I just want to share some quick chamber news before we wrap up here. This Friday, so that's tomorrow, is the deadline for our Pinnacle of the Year awards nominations. So we give out awards for Small Business of the Year, Business of the Year, Nonprofit of the Year, and Business Leader of the Year. So you may know someone who is outstanding or a business that is really exceptional. That would be a great candidate. So submit the nomination. It's quick, it's easy. You can do it online. Check out our website to get a link to that. Next week, we have a webinar on Tuesday about social responsibility programs for your business or organization. And we talked a little bit about diversity and inclusion today. So that may be an aspect of that, but also maybe your business, starts an environment responsibility program, something like that. There are things that people find important that their employers do. So that's what this webinar will talk about. And then we also have a networking event coming up in May. This is on a platform that we absolutely love called Remo, where you see a map on your screen. You can see little pictures of your friends and click on a table to go sit next to them, and you'll be in a video chat room with them. So it is a ton of fun. People can't get enough of it. So if you haven't tried it out yet, come check out our next networking event on May 11th with New Hampshire Federal Credit Union. So those are my updates. I want to thank you, Amy, so much for today's presentation. You covered so much, and I found it was really, really interesting. And thank you, Tanya, for being here as well and adding to it. So we're really glad to have you guys, be a part of this presentation, and are looking forward to future sessions with you.
Thank you. And I just sent over the record retention document to you to share as well. So it gives them some guidance on that.
Perfect. So I'll get that out to everyone who is watching. And thank you all so much for coming. We'll see you at the next chamber event.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.